Good afternoon, Greenland, and good afternoon, to our friends on the East Coast, and good evening, to our friends in Europe, and maybe we still have, some Australian or New Zealander watching the show. I'm not sure, but this is a very unique session for many reasons. We have people from Denmark, we have people from Greenland, and this is the very first time that we put such a focus on Greenland. And we would like, to explore why. And when the speaker will start, to explain why, you'll understand that Greenland is not only an amazing potential, but it's also a country for seaweed. So let's start and let's dive into a first round of introduction. So we're going to start with Denmark, with Sophie. Sophie, would you mind telling our audience who you are, what you do, and why you're here?
So my name is Sophie, and I am an investment manager with the Sovereign Investment Fund of Denmark. We invest domestically within Denmark, but also in Greenland and Faroe Islands, and have a broad interest in sustainable foods and sustainable technologies. And very excited when we are able to work with Greenland, because there's such a large potential there for bioresources and new technologies as well.
Thank you, Anne-Sophie. I must tell our audience that Anne-Sophie last year became famous because she was participating to the Seaweed session on investment, and everybody wanted to know more about her, because she's part of the Sovereign Fund of Denmark, and this is something that everybody as an investor, is looking for. So the next on the list will be Nikoline. Nikoline, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, hi. I am Nikoline Ziemer. I work in Royal Greenland in Greenland, and I work as a business development manager. And my sole focus is to look into species in Greenlandic waters that we do not utilize today and see if I can build up a business case. And that is what I'm doing with the seaweed currently. So I've been doing some trials with the seaweed cultivation for some years, and that was successful. And now I'm actually I just got funding a short time ago to upscale. So I'm really happy. Thank you for letting me be with you.
Thank you. Susse, can you introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. So I am a senior advisor at Aarhus University in Denmark. I have a long-term expertise in seaweed, also in Greenland, maybe about 30 years actually. And working with seaweeds includes both taxonomy, mapping, the distribution of kelp forest and tidal zone vegetation, but also ecotoxicology and also cultivation trials, as well as looking into ways of sustainable harvest.
Thank you, Susse. Allan, please.
Well, my name is Allan Chemnitz, as it is written on the screen now. I am the CEO of Innovation South Greenland, and I by no means is an expert in seaweed, but I have a very big wish to establish a platform in South Greenland, as I can see the potential of developing this industry in South Greenland. Innovation South Greenland, to put it short, was established by the municipality in 2019. And we are working with 4 pillars at the moment, which is tourism, food, fishery, and minerals. So we have a very broad area to cover, and looking at the fishery in South Greenland, we have many big challenges, which I will perhaps come in talk a little bit more about later on.
Absolutely. So let me start with the question that was not on my list. Why we never speak about Greenland? Why Greenland has a good chance to be the next seaweed Eldorado? Who would like him to pick up on this one? Nikoline, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I think that Greenland is a perfect place to cultivate seaweed. There is also the possibility for wild harvest, but we are looking on the cultivation because we find that much more sustainable because we are adding biomass to the sea and harvesting from that. But the thing is that in Greenland, we are in Royal Greenland, we are focusing on 2 species, and that is sugar kelp and Dabalog wing kelp. And these 2 species are proven by many other countries and has proven to be easy to cultivate on. And I have found out that it's also easy to cultivate in Greenland. And it is actually so that in Greenland, the waters are so perfect. I find it perfect because the conditions are there for the nutritional availability and the sun. So there's a perfect combination for the seaweed to grow. And these colder waters make it a long period for growth for the seaweed that we set out. So it's really amazing.
Excellent. And Sophie, you're in the investment sector. What is the purpose of trying, to develop, a seaweed industry so far from motherland in Greenland? What will be the real aim of investing in this entire new sector in Greenland?
Well, hopefully it would be a case of, multiple bottom lines, one being economic, but others being social change, creating jobs, creating knowledge, supporting new technologies, and ideally also increasing the amount of available food broadly in the world.
Excellent.
I think from an investment perspective, there's a lot of opportunities because there's much to be done. We're hearing now about the cultivation side of things and the development that's going on there. And as that starts to scale, we'll start needing some production facilities, some R&D in order to create new tasteful products, maybe extract some high value compounds and so on. So there's really a lot to be done. I think it's quite interesting.
Excellent. So I'm turning now, to Susse. You're the scientist. I'd like, to understand better, the panorama of seaweed in Greenland. Can you elaborate a little bit more and tell us more about, what is the real actual situation of seaweed in Greenland?
So I guess, well, what you're asking me is what species do we have and how is it widespread in Greenland? So, so in Greenland, the kelp forest, for example, it might be a bit different from other places in that it's a mixture of species. So it's not comparable, for example, to what we see in Norway, where we have one large kelp species, is Laminaria hyperborea, that you can harvest. In Greenland, we have a different species. So we have sugar kelp species, the Saccharina species. We have, as Nikoline also mentioned, the Alaria esculenta, the Atlantic gumbo. We have Aegerum clatratum, which is also called shotgun kelp, which is actually quite a dominant species in the kelp forest. And also we have some laminaria species, the Laminaria soliduncula, which is endemic to the Arctic. And then also we have another species that looks a bit like one that you probably know. It's Laminaria digitata, I think it's called finger kelp, but this one is called Hedophyllum nigripes in Greenland. So you have a mixture of these kind of dominant kelp species. So that will also challenge, for example, if you're going to harvest and your harvest methods. Then if we go to the tidal zone, it's look very much like in the temperate area. So we have the fucoid species. So it's Fucus vesiculosus and disticus, the rockweed species, and then also the Ascophyllum nodosum, which also is of high commercial interest. But it's it might be a bit patchy, and the Ascophyllum is not that. It is mostly on the west coast and up to the Disco Bay area. So that's sort of mid West Greenland, and for example, the Laminaria solidungula is much more widespread and in biomass as well on the east coast compared to the west coast. So it is a bit different. So it's important to know your kelp forest.
Excellent. And Allan, so you've been working with local communities, and you started with this point, and I think it's really important. So you both work on seaweed and fisheries, but the fisheries are going down, as we all know. So what do you have in mind, and what kind of data do you have, what kind of data have you accumulated over the past year to be very convinced that seaweed has a great trend and a huge possibility in terms of potential development?
I think it's important to say that we are still in the pioneering phase, and our knowledge at this point is quite limited, but both the Inuit in South Greenland as well as the politicians have a great desire to develop the country's southernmost region towards greater self-sufficiency. We have some farms in South Greenland, which is quite unique here. And some of the things that I had in mind was actually that we could help those farms into to becoming more self-sufficient by the help of kelp, for instance. It could also be a byproduct for the farmers, as we know that some of them are fishers, apart from being farmers, very much like the Vikings were about 1,000 years ago. I think that it's important to have an open mind to find other ways to become self-supplying in different ways. And those are the primary thoughts behind us participating at a NORA project, which was started about 1.5 years ago, I think. And also, some of the things that we have in mind is that we have many similarities with the Norwegian fjords, which we know is far developed compared to where we are now, and that's some of the things that we definitely have in mind when we are thinking about microalgae and kelp as well.
Okay. Excellent. Nikoline, the next question is for you, but just in between, I'm going to try to answer some of the question. And Susse, I have a request, from our audience. Would it be possible to share in the chat room the names of all the species that you mentioned that are endemic in Greenland? That would be helpful. And for our audience, the answer would be posted in the chat that is online. Okay.
So I can just mention they're not endemic to Greenland, but I can mention the species that I can write the species I just mentioned.
Absolutely. Yeah, perfect. So Nikoline, back to you. So you represent the industry because Royal Greenland is one of the largest players in Greenland for fisheries, but also now for seaweed. And you are participated to the first pilot, I would say, in terms of seaweed cultivation. So can you tell us more about this pilot, and how do you see the scaling up process of this farm?
Yes, I would love to. I've been doing some trials for the last 3 years, and I have seen good results. And that's in very small scale, where we were doing it by hand, the traditional way of cultivating seaweed with the lines in the water. As you can see in the background, you see a ring, and in that ring, my lines are tied up and with some drop lines, and on those drop lines, the seaweed are growing within 10 months, and then I can harvest them. And that's the process that I've been testing, and that is a small scale, labor-intensive way of cultivating seaweed. I've been looking for a partner in an upscaling phase where we can look into how to upscale this so that it's not too labor intensive, and I would like it to be intelligent. And I have found a partner in Arctic Seaweed in Norway, who has been developing a holistic system for both cultivating and harvesting, and also there is a solution for the products. So we have just established a cooperation with Arctic Seaweed for the next couple of years until 2024, where we are doing a test, a pilot to test whether or not their system in the Norwegian waters is applicable to the Greenlandic seas, where we have the issues with the ice.
Yeah.
So we will. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we will be deploying our 16 kilometers this fall, and I'm really looking forward to it, because that's a big upscale from my 1.5 kilometers. That is the most I've done. And up till the 16 kilometers, that is just a test phase. And in this test phase, we will be proving the business case, whether or not this is economically feasible to proceed with. And we are believing in this. So we actually believe that in 2024, we have the key numbers to what does this cost to deploy this system and use it in Greenlandic context. So when these 2 years have passed, and we have proven that this business case is solid, then we will actually within 5 years go up to 144 kilometers within 5 years, and that's a lot.
I think, Nikoline, that you've track records in Norway, in Canada, in New Zealand, in countries where you have similar, I would say, situation, and you're going to get, the similar model that will prove, that it's feasible and it's profitable. So I really look forward, to see what will be the development. But it leads me, to a question, to Anne-Sophie, because we're talking about economics, and economics is very important. And you represent, the Sovereign Fund of Denmark, Anne-Sophie. So most likely you're going to say that infrastructure is part of your mandate. But how do you see, I would say, the support that the Sovereign Fund can bring you to Greenland if we wish to establish this entire value chain and build, this, what could be, the next blue revolution for Denmark? Because you mentioned it, at the beginning, if we have enough protein that could be produced from Greenland being, associated with Denmark, it could be a huge step forward.
Absolutely. The thing is that it is always costful to develop, and right now my company believes so much in this project that they are putting in quite a lot of investment in this project, in this pilot project, so that we can see whether or not this is economically feasible within the next couple of years. Does it bring enough yield? Does it minimize the cost? And is it effective? And can it reduce the usage of labor-intensive methods? So that is what we are going to look into and what we are going to develop over the next couple.
Thank you, Nikoline. And so, and Sophie, maybe you can complement, the answer from the Sovereign Fund in Denmark.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a really good collaboration with the Greenlandic Pension Fund, Susse, and with Greenland Ventures. So we have this joint investment fund that we can invest in projects in Greenland with. We love to do co-investments because we would really like to attract additional investors to Greenland as well. And we do different types of both loan financing and equity. And this can be infrastructure, as you mentioned. It can be production machines. It can be equity for starting and scaling. It can be lots of different things. From this fund, currently we've been investing into minerals and tourism and a bit of fisheries, I believe, but on the infrastructure side. And we would really love to get more into the food sector. And as this value chain grows and the innovation starts to bubble in Greenland, I believe that there's a number of different ways that we would be able to support the local development there.
Excellent. Yeah, well, this is very cool. And I'm very excited to see, the potentialities about, the sovereign fund supporting, local economy. This is absolutely what we're looking for. Just a question before I go back to you, Allan. A quick question, Susse. So if Greenland is moving to seaweed cultivation, and the numbers that Nikoline are announcing are not that big, but do we need, still to be careful and make some assessment on the large-scale seaweed aquaculture? Because you have quite a unique situation in Greenland, pristine water, you have perfect conditions. So we don't want, to turn that into a monospecific cultivation that might impair, the rest of the ecosystem. So what do we need to do, and how can we envisage, this step forward?
Well, if we're using the protocols that is sort of available now, and Nikoline follows, I don't have really concerns about initiating larger seaweed cultivation in Greenland as such, but definitely potential effects should be monitored, and cultivation should also be regulated if needed, and if it is expands as an industry. There has been a project in Norway called KelpPro. It was terminated in 2020, where they looked into the environmental effects from seaweed cultivation, and they looked into the effects on seabed and the competition for nutrients with phytoplankton, which is sort of the base of the food web. They looked into artificial habitats, so if it would attract other organisms, naturally occurring or invasive species, and also they looked into population genetics. So if there was difference in genetics and how breeding, for example, for more valuable strains could affect the natural occurring organisms. But from their sort of findings, it would not be a concern, I think, in Greenland as it is, as I would see it right now. But of course, it would be important. They did find that there were different populations, and they actually recommended genetic differing populations. And they do recommend that you don't move around with your species. So you have these eco regions, and you should stick to your natural occurring population and the species there. But of course, if we go to large scale, it should be monitored, and of course regulation should be invented if it is of concern.
Perfect transition. So by the way, I see all the back and forth in the chat room, and you have a big fan, Nikoline, because my friend Theo, who will be in the next session, has invented a technology that can separate, the liquid protein from the carbohydrate, and is a good candidate, to come to Greenland and help you to transform and biorefine, the seaweed. So Theo, I'm going to connect you with Nikoline, but also with Allan, because he's also working, with the local communities, and that counts. And of course, we're going to present your technology also to Anne-Sophie. That will be a blockbuster for her. So Allan, how do you see the collaboration with the government agency? And if we wish to scale up the seaweed production, what do you expect from them? I have a secondary question. What will be the bottlenecks that we need, to unlock if we want, to get into this protein production, in Greenland?
I think first of all we need to have a plan on a political level as well as the practical level where we are living. And what we need is in the fishing industry, I think, will be more education. We need to have education program as well as building clusters across the country in order to attract investments. I actually thought when I heard about Anne-Sophie's input to this that I have my new best friend. I will be very much interested in learning more about what they're doing, but also I think that it is important to create more awareness about the possibilities and opportunities in kelp and seaweed in Greenland. We simply don't have the tradition for that, and the things that both Susse and Nikoline is doing is also very much pioneering work in the same way as we are trying to do. So I think that what we need is to bring more attention to it.
Thank you for this very direct answer. And one of the question you raised, during the preparation of the call was the importance of the labor force. Nikoline, you mentioned that it's very rare and it's very valuable to find the right people. So is there a plan, to train more people? Is there a plan, to convince people from Denmark, to move to Greenland and start, to engage with seaweed production? What will be, the requirement? Because it seems to be a huge problem for you on your hand.
It is a huge problem in Greenland in the high season, and that is the summer, to get enough labor force. So that is always a challenge. So what we do today, there are some national strategies for that, so that we do not import people, but we use the people in Greenland. So actually we have support systems for people coming from the coast, other cities to a specific place where the labor force is scarce. So these systems are in place. But in addition to that, we need to do something else. And the things that I am always focusing on is how to build in as much technology as possible so that the labor force can be lightened, so that it's not so heavy, the requirements for this type of work. And this is a system that I have found in the Arctic solution, Arctic seaweed solution. So I find that very interesting, and that's why this system is going to work for our country, because it is not labor intensive in the same manner as the traditional seaweed cultivations, and it has systematized a lot of the processes in the different steps in producing seaweed. So it's quite intelligent, and I have a high hope for these results.
Is there also a way, to consider training, education as a key vector, for encouraging young generation to go back to the sea and developing seaweed, I would say, diploma or training or
Oh
expertise?
yes, oh yes. This is an integrated part of the solution, that we train the people to both the seeding processes and the harvesting, and also maintenance of the equipment and expansion. These are all part of the plan. So these are all part of a pipeline solution that we will have for the upscaling process. But firstly, we need to prove that these 2 years is going well.
Yeah.
And we will take it step by step.
I agree. But Allan, bouncing, on this type of key issue, you're working with the local community. So how do you see, the commitment of the general public and local communities? Are they aware of the potential of seaweed? And what will be, the take, if we want to convince, this young generation to go back to the sea and do something that is good for the country, for the environment, and for their local economy? You're on mute, Allan. Allan, you're on mute.
Yes, I'm back. The thing is that they are aware of the opportunities in seaweed, but we need to make some programs and ways to train them. I actually think that the education is the key answer here. Like I said before, we don't have the tradition at this point of developing seaweed, but we have to start someplace. So I think that a part of this will be, like I said before, making clusters and education training. But also another thing that we have to be aware of, especially in South Greenland, is that to map the ice-free areas where it actually makes sense to grow seaweed.
Okay, so maybe before I take the next question to Anne-Sophie, just in terms of researchers, if we develop a new industry sector, Susse, the industry will need more applied research. Is there any researchers? Do we need to train more students? And what will be the requirement to develop in a very real and sustainable way this industry?
I do work very closely together with the Greenland Institute of Natural Resources, and there are also people there that is working with benthic ecology and including seaweed, and we seek to sort of make sure that the projects on seaweeds are anchored at the Institute as well. So we make sure that all the knowledge that is gained within projects is transferred to Greenland and to this Greenland Institute of Natural Resources. Okay, so that is perfect. A very close collaboration, actually.
Excellent. The time is running fast, and I have so many questions I wanted to ask, but stay online, because after this session you're going to visit the pilot test of Nikoline. So there's a video coming after the panel. Maybe one quick last question, Nikoline, before we do the conclusion. Anne-Sophie, for our friends in Greenland, they have a project. We're going to build up, the biorefinery. Everything is costly. But if we have demonstrated that the project is worth it, if we have good economics, what will be the next step for you to envisage, a direct investment in this type of projects?
Yeah, so I think most dialogues with investors usually get off to a good start when you have a business plan and a project description. That's really, really important. So condensing all the knowledge that you've gained about the technology that you want to use, the market that you would like to pursue, everything else, and matching that with budgets. And I'm anticipating that's probably something that Allan can help you with if you've never made a business plan before. And then starting to reach out to different type of investors. We quite often see that, very, very early stage, a lot of entrepreneurs will get their money from the 3 Fs. These are the friends, fools, and family. And beyond that, you can start attracting maybe some business angel capital if you can find some, and more institutional capital, like what we usually offer to entrepreneurs. And depending on which type of company you're building, you might have different financing needs. And it's always a good idea to try to clarify what will my company need in the next 12, 18, 24 months? Which type of capital is good for that? Is it equity? Do I want to sell a percentage of my company in order to get someone who's going to be now co-deciding the future of my company with me? Or is what I actually need just, some loan financing to lease a production machine or something like that? I think clarifying what it is that your current needs are, trying to reach out to relevant investors and building upon that, ideally with a long-term scheme in mind, is a great way to go forward.
I'm going to give the last word to Nikoline, but Nikoline, no more than 1 minute, because we need to jump into your pilot and watch the video. So 1 minute.
And it is about the video. The video is not about the pilot, because the pilot is not happened yet. So this is the traditional way of seaweed cultivation in Greenlandic context. That's what I wanted to say.
Okay,
Thank
excellent.
you.
So I will invite you to log in, the video, the next one. I thank you very much. And I really look forward to coming to Greenland. I know that Catherine, who's online, is visiting Greenland. Catherine, I will pass you all the contacts information so you can meet with all the panelists. This will be an important step. And thank you very much, for your passion, for your comments. And I hope that next year, when we come back to Greenland, we'll have, a real start in the industry. Thank you very much, and enjoy the continuation of the show. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.